Yaron Brook is President and Executive Director of the Ayn Rand Institute. He's a columnist at Forbes.com, and his articles have been featured in major publications such as the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and Investors Business Daily. Yaron, welcome. You travel the country, mostly to college campuses, and you're trying to spread your objectivist ideals. How have they been received? Our young people are liberals, aren't they?
Young people are liberals, but young people are also open to ideas. You can get to young people. And I find that, at the beginning of the lecture, people are skeptical, that I'm considered right-wing, and they don't know what to think of it exactly, and they've heard rumors about what Ayn Rand stands for. But by the end of a good lecture and after a lengthy Q&A, people are thinking, people are being challenged. And I find a lot of receptivity. People are looking for new ideas, particularly right now, more than any other time. People are fed up with kind of the standard cliches that they hear, and they're looking for new ideas, and I think they find Ayn Rand's ideas compelling.
Jobs, taxes, deficits. What would Ayn Rand do?
Well, that's really easy, right? What Ayn Rand would do would completely slash government spending. So she would put a plan together to phase out Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Not make them more efficient, not save them, phase them out. Now, if you're 60, you've planned on these programs, so they're just going to exist, right, for you. But if you're 55, you're only going to get 90% of what you were promised. If you're 40, you're going to get 50%. And if you're 20, forget it. You're not getting anything. So that within a couple of generations, there's no Social Security, no Medicare, no Medicaid. Cut spending across the board. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of programs the government does that have nothing to do with its core function. See, Ayn Rand believed the government should do one thing and one thing only and do it really well, and that is protect individual rights. So use that as a razor. Every program doesn't protect individual rights, fine, deserves a budget. It doesn't protect individual rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, cut it. The government shouldn't be in that business. So whether you phase it out or you cut it immediately, then once you've cut all that, you can cut taxes dramatically. You need, while you're doing that, to cut regulations dramatically, ultimately to phase out the regulatory states and leave business to do business, leave us as consumers to make choices. So we want to shrink government, and I think ultimately my goal would be, and Ayn Rand's goal would be long-term, to shrink government by 80, 90%.
Wow, that's a big number.
That's dramatic.
Where would you start cutting? Where would Ayn Rand start cutting?
Well, there are lots of places to start. You could do away with the Department of Education. You could do away with the Department of Energy. I would cut all subsidies to business. There shouldn't be any subsidies to business.
You sound like Rand Paul. That's exactly what Rand Paul said. Talking about politicians, who would Ayn Rand be for the 2012 election? Who would she be pushing?
I don't think she'd be pushing anybody. I think she'd be pushing an anti-Obama candidate.
Like who?
And I hate to speak for Ayn Rand because she was always surprising. But I would pretty much push anybody over Obama. But in terms of the candidates the Republican Party has today, I think Romney's a loser. This is a guy who gave us Romney Care, which is very similar to Obamacare, and he still hasn't apologized for it. So here's a guy who's a middle-of-the-road Republican who will sway leftwards, in my view, as soon as he's elected. He reminds me of Bush Sr. Nothing.
Perry.
Perry sounds good on a lot of the economic issues. Called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. He's absolutely right. The problem with Perry is he's ultra-religious. The guy, before he announced his candidacy, had a weekend of prayer for the U.S. economy. With all due respect, prayer is not what the U.S. economy needs. It needs freedom and liberty. I support Perry if that's the candidate, but I can't get enthusiastic about him because of the religiosity. And the same thing goes for Michelle Bachmann. The same thing. They're just way out there on the fringe in terms of their evangelical religion.
What do objectives believe about the Judeo-Christian tradition of our country?
So we don't believe the country is fundamentally a Judeo-Christian country. We don't think it has a Judeo-Christian tradition. This country is an Enlightenment country. This country is a product of the Age of Reason. This is a Lockean country, John Locke. It's a country based on the principle of individual rights. There are no individual rights in the New or Old Testament. I've looked, it doesn't appear there. Right? The whole concept of what this country is about freedom of the individual to do with his life as he wishes. Be religious? Fine. Be an atheist? Fine. Government should have no position one way or the other. This is a country that was founded on the principle that government should be there to protect us from force and fraud, that it should be separated from our ideas, it shouldn't dictate our ideas, it shouldn't be in education, it should be separated from the economy, it shouldn't be regulating and taxing and trying to subsidize businesses, it should be out of the economy completely. So, Rand believed that this was a country based on those kind of secular Enlightenment, pro-reason principles that came out of the great Scottish and British Enlightenment.
Yaron, would Ayn Rand pick a presidential candidate of anybody out there in politics today, other than you, of course?
No, I couldn't win, even if I could run. I can't imagine any of the declared candidates.
No,
There's certainly people on the fringes that
let's talk about the Senate, the House, and governors.
Sure.
Anybody?
Sure. I mean, I think Paul Ryan is as good as it gets within the Republican Party. He's not big on religion. I think he's religious, but he doesn't make a big deal out of it. He has new, fresh ideas about economic policy and about the budget. I still think he's too moderate, but he's in the right direction, and he seems honest, and he seems straightforward. I think some of the governors, somebody like Mitch Daniels, arguably somebody like John Kasich, I'm hearing good things about some of the other younger governors. There's Christie in New Jersey, who I think is a straight shooter. We'll see whether he does what he actually says. I think that's yet to be determined. But, some of these governors who are willing to separate themselves from the radical religious agenda, focus in on shrinking government and focus in on the purpose of government and what government is supposed to do, I think there are quite a few people who could be running. Unfortunately, I think you either got the very religious candidate, the Perry and the Bachmans, or the kind of secular, wimpy candidate, which is Mitt Romney.
Can you be a Christian, Jew, Muslim, and still be an objectivist?
Not completely. So you can certainly take on a lot of the objectivist philosophy, and I get emails signed by people who claim they're Christian objectivists, and they've accepted a big part of objectivism, and good for them, and I think they're better for being a Christian objectivist than being a Christian, right? Whatever objectivism they adopt, it's better for me, it's better for them, it's better for everybody around them. But the core philosophy, the philosophy is fundamentally a pro-reason philosophy. And if you're willing to say, I'm willing to bring reason to every part of my life, to every question that I face, then you're an objectivist. Faith is the opposite of reason. Faith is when you say, to this area in life, I'm not asking questions. I'm not bringing reason. I just believe because. That's a contradiction. Now again, people can bring reason to a big chunk of their life. People can bring objectivism to a big part of the way they live their life and the way they run their businesses. But as a system as a whole, I think it is inconsistent with the idea of faith.
Will we see in the near future, or when will we see, a Ayn Rand objectivist caucus in the Congress? And will we ever see an objectivist presidential candidate?
So I think you will see presidential candidates quoting Ayn Rand in the near future. I think that if Paul Ryan runs, he's likely to quote Ayn Rand. He'd definitely be associated with Ayn Rand. I think there are going to be presidential candidates in the next few terms that are going to quote Ayn Rand, be associated with her. I don't think they're going to be objectivists. I think we're far off from having objectivism dominate the culture to the point where somebody like me can run for president. Even if I wasn't born in Israel and I could run, because people ask me this all the time, I couldn't get elected. I'm still too radical. Somebody out there saying, look, we need to phase out Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and your life is yours to live as you please, not as long as you don't stick your hand in my pocket. Live your life, pursue your rational values. It's not my business, not the government's business. That's still a radical agenda. We still, as a culture, want to take, we want government to take care of us. We want a government to take care of our neighbor. We maybe want to be free, but we don't want our neighbor to be free. There's still a lot of bad ideas that have been gaining steam over the last 100 years in this country that need to be reversed before somebody with really an objectivist agenda could run for president and win. And so decades, many decades probably.
Dr. Yaron Brook, president of the Ayn Rand Institute, thank you so much for being here, and come back soon.
My pleasure. Love to.